All right, welcome back for another episode of the Awkward Watersport Guys podcast, and we have a special show today. Some of you might have saw that Kevin released his book, and I'm really excited because I really enjoyed reading it, and I know Kevin's been spending a lot of time on this, but this is kind of an interview of Kevin today. So, Kevin, what's up?
Yo,
How do you feel? You got it out. Made to millionaire.
yeah, it's out.
How do you feel? You don't seem excited. I don't. What's going on in your head?
I think it's like I think it's a good tool for operators that are getting in the game and operators that are a few years in, and maybe operators that don't have the leadership component quite right.
Mhm.
I mean, it's just like a weird emotional thing that I even experienced like writing the book, because the first few years of those years that are outlined in that book, right? Because the whole premise is like, starting from zero and going to $1 million in revenue. I'm not a millionaire. so, so we're clear here, I'm not an actual
So you're
millionaire.
telling me that if you add up all your assets, your ownership in your business, you're not a millionaire. You're a millionaire.
Sure.
You are.
I mean, like, but a lot of times people are just like, you know what I mean? Like, you're not a millionaire unless you have like $1 million in cash.
Remember in the 90s when like you would hear the word millionaire and everyone's like, whoa, but
Yeah.
like with inflation, now it's like you could have had $500,000 in the 90s and be a millionaire now. But
Yeah.
anyways.
Yeah, no, true. True. Yeah. So it's just kind of like my story of starting with like zero, like negative $100,000, and, scaling my business to $1 million in revenue, which is no small feat for any small business. So I'm certainly proud of that, but it was a very difficult 4 years. It was a really hard 4 years. So just kind of like, and there's a lot of stuff that's not in the book. Like, obviously, it's, like how much of a mess I was, how much of a mess my wife was, the sacrifice.
I mean, you
like,
talk about the sacrifice almost every chapter.
yeah,
About
yeah,
the struggles and everything. I read the book, I don't know, a week ago. It took me about a little over an hour. So this is not a like huge read. It's not extremely thick. You're really, I like how you broke out the chapters, because it's like, picking your location, picking your software and tools, picking like your team. I mean, it goes into sales. I especially like the sales piece. One thing that I think about after reading it is like how you run your sales. When someone calls the phone or calls to book, you don't just say, hey, let me book you. You say, let me see, to kind of drive some scarcity, some FOMO. I liked how you laid out the sales piece. And what I took from it when I finished reading is like, wow, it tells the story of someone starting from the bottom and going all the way to the top. And I think like we need more of that. So like there's some practical advice, there's some really good tips, but also it's inspirational for someone who's like, maybe you're working on a parasail boat and you have aspirations to own your own boat one day and run your own tour. Maybe you're working as a deckhand or dockhand, and you realize, okay, I know this industry. I might want to go buy a few boats and do this myself. And it's like, how do I start? And there's no resources out there for this industry. This is the first book on actually running a water sport company and learning. And there's so many people there's only so many business owners, but there's thousands of people that fit the mold of like who you're writing for. And I think like it's a necessary resource that we're missing. And obviously they can go on the Facebook group we have and learn that way, but there's really nobody like sharing their story like this intimately. So I really enjoyed it. It's a great book.
Thanks.
So what are what are your like what are your favorite parts? Like what are your like when you were writing this, like what chapters were like, wow, like I think like this turned out really well.
Uh, I haven't even, like, since I've got the physical copy, I haven't gone back and looked
You
at it.
haven't read it, haven't you?
I have read it. I mean, I've
Okay.
read it. I've read the book more times than anybody. I've read the book probably 15 times at least. The first iteration, the second iteration, the rewrite. I spent a lot of time on it. Yeah, and just like sort of like during the whole process, I was, you know, it was like weirdly emotional, man. Not weirdly, it's just I had to like go back on some. I had to call back on some things, and you know, you get to this point, like this whole thing that you're like trying to achieve, and fuck, man, you know, it's
Yeah.
you know what I mean. It's hard, dude. It's
This
really it's
I
really hard. Like, cause like it literally every year, like every single year was like a fucking, you know what I mean? Like, God
yeah.
damn it, man. You know what I mean? Is this worth it? Is this, you know what I mean? Like, fuck. And then you just sort of like get to this point, just like 4 years in, and like, you know what I mean? I'm just like, you know, and I like sometimes like people, you know, I'll get asked like, at events or stuff, like why I sometimes like disappear, because a lot of times I just don't want to have the conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just like fucking, you know, I'll give my piece, I'll do my thing, I'll be like, here's what you do. Like, I don't want to talk about it anymore, dude. You know what I mean? Like, fucking, like I don't want to have like a intimate. I gotta want to control the narrative. You know what I mean? So, my favorite piece of the book,
My favorite piece is this one
yeah,
here. When I met him, I swear he looked like he was born in late 1800s. Cane, Panama Jack hat, thick leather. He reminded me of the old scientist from Jurassic Park.
yeah, man,
You gotta. There's some of these are inside jokes, but there's a landlord in our area that he literally looks like the guy from Jurassic Park, and he has that old Southern, you know, draw, and he rips everybody off on leases. But yeah, it's
yeah.
funny.
My favorite piece is on training,
Yeah,
and like the story with Chance.
yeah, yeah. I really enjoyed that. Yep.
Yeah, Chance is like my longest employee and my first hire,
Hmm.
and in my business, probably the most singular aspect of my business that I'm proud of.
Hmm.
Um, because Chance came to me and he wanted to be a mechanic, and and I think I tell the story in the book about, I'm not sure if I do, about him coming to I asked him for a pair of channel locks, like pliers.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and he
That's
comes
a good
back with
point. Yeah.
like a screwdriver or something. And I'm just like, you want to be a mechanic, dude? Like, have you ever even touched a tool? And it was like one of those things where I feel like he wanted to be a mechanic because um his dad was a mechanic.
Hmm.
Um and you know, Chance was actually raised by his grandparents. And so I think there's like this innate um I think a lot of us, men, entrepreneurs, have an innate need to sort of like please their fathers, or, you know, surpass their fathers, be better than
Yeah.
their dad type of
Hmm.
thing. And, you know, today he's like tearing down engines. And I mean, he is like our lead mechanic. And so this idea that I'm like, I don't know where you're going to be here, but I
Hmm.
want you to be here. And because you have a drive, and I really respect it. And even though I was like, ha ha ha, like he'll probably never be a mechanic, I pushed him to go get his captain's license. And he wanted to be a mechanic, and that's where he falls in today. And he's like, you know what I mean, very proud of himself, as he should be. But I think there's just a whole, you know, sub story that's not in the book, of people that are told like, you can't do this thing, or you're not going to be able to do this thing, and then
Hmm.
and proving them wrong. So I love that whole piece of his journey, of my journey. And that's definitely my favorite part. And it's like, again, just my most favorite piece of this business is actually, it could all go to shit tomorrow. And I'd be like, dude, you know what I mean? Like, I was a part of helping somebody, find their way in life. And I honestly feel like that's what it's about,
Yeah.
the whole quote.
I also like you shared your story of losing your location, but because of the networking you've done, relationships you made, you were able to get through that and actually find a better spot, which where you're at now, for Destiny. And I think that's important. I still talk to people who are like, fuck my competitors. I won't talk to them. I'm gonna just keep to my business. And I don't I I mean I understand to hold some of your cards pretty close. You don't want to just share everything, but at the same time, you don't have to be a dick to everybody. You have to play along because you just never know when you're gonna get the word that your marina was sold and you're out of there, and now you got to make friends, or you don't
Yeah.
have a business. And you talk about that, and we've had Ben Murrell on the show, and we've talked about this situation about networking and how important it is. And we've seen that in our Facebook group, like in our at the port events, how everyone's just coming together. They're buying each other's business. They're selling each other's equipment. I mean, we have this small community that's helping each other out, moving everything forward. And you touch upon that, which I think was really important because it's a missing piece, in our industry.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my closest friends in my 40s, that people that I've, obviously you, of course, and Ben is, and just a huge inspiration when I was just starting out, and today. And yeah, because the things that you go through, like every chapter is like a struggle or a problem or a piece to solve. And it's more challenging when you don't have someone to lean on, or when you don't have someone to bounce ideas off of. If
Yeah.
you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of times you're going to be the smartest guy in the room on some subjects, but on other subjects, maybe not so much. Also, you're going to be super close to the sun on it. So this happens with you and I all the time, where I say something or you say something, and then like either one's like, well, have you looked at it like this? Because I
Mhm.
think that's the one constant between all of us. Any person who's reached any kind of like modicum of success in water sports or anything, they're going to be good problem solvers. So you're not necessarily always going to have the best solution to a problem. And when you have people that you can call and talk to or bounce ideas off of, you're going to be you're going to be more inclined, well, that person is going to be more inclined not to have like confirmation bias or preconceived
Mhm.
notions, and just their way about going to solve a brand new problem, right? Because
Yeah.
that's what it is usually, like right off the gut. Like, when we were in the WSIA in my truck, you know what I mean? Like, you immediately started to like go into problem solver mode. You're like, well, what if you do this? Like, what if you did that? Like, I think that's the sort of the beautiful thing about what it is that we do. And so even if it's something you have zero experience in, you're going to have some kind of like off the cuff solution. And people, man, people that don't have that are just like, oh, I know, and don't have the hubris to sort of like reach out, or even the people to reach out to say, what do you think about this? How would you problem solve this? I think they lack that most important tool in the arsenal.
Yeah. I have like 4 or 5 people. You're one of them that I'm always just talking to about things, just bouncing off, having that small support mentorship group. I wrote about this. I created a post on LinkedIn about like, if you're bootstrapping, here are like 10 things, and having a mentorship group is like huge. But, you know, uh, one of the things I also like is that, like, even though you cover a lot of things, like you don't, um, Well, you put enough in there to where like you're extracting like the most value of each topic and then putting it in. You're summarizing it really well, because obviously if you wrote the entire, it would be 100,000 pages of stuff. But like, I like the part about OTAs, which is I'll just read the section
Shocker.
in here. I know, but I think like what you say in here, like this is the part that I highlighted when I was reading it, and I'll read it. So there's also a concept of customer lifetime value, which is often misunderstood by operators. If guest spends $100 on an OTA and I get 80 while they take 20, it may seem like it cost me 20% to acquire the guest. However, if we provide a great experience, that guest returns to us directly just 2 more times over the next 5 years, their lifetime value rises to 300. That drops by actual guest acquisition from 20% down to 6.3%.
Yep.
I can't stress this enough. When people bitch about paying OTAs commission, they don't realize that you have a prime opportunity to bring that customer back, to sell them more tours if you offer multiple different experiences. A lot of destinations that are heavy with water sports, especially here in Northwest Florida, people come back year after year after year. And I've seen, I mean, I've been in Trip Shocks, they're 16th season. I've seen companies grow huge businesses being very OTA heavy. And I'm telling you, like, they are not using OTAs every single time. Once they have that relationship, they are coming back, and that acquisition cost that you paid will continue to go down. And I've said, I don't know how else to say it, but I know people listening to the show are probably getting the hint that like you pay one time, you get their information, and then you remarket to them and bring them back and provide a great experience. And that sums it up. That paragraph right there is all that needs to be said about it.
Yeah, and I think there's there's a value that's harder to track, but going in a different direction, which is something I talk about in the book too, is like this idea of like owning your traffic. And a strong referral network is really important insofar as reducing your costs of marketing and advertising. Mm-hmm. And there are ways to obviously track this, but I think for the most operators aren't going to shoot somebody a QR code to give to their friend or something like that. Yep. But there's this idea of like creating a referral network. I mean, this is why, and people, it's like, given the recent thing with like the Google counter, like people like, I lost 300 reviews, dude. I lost 10% of my reviews. Well, I didn't lose them. They just weren't on the counter. And I was just kind of like, oh, okay, whatever. I've got 2,800 reviews. I'm sure that's fine. But, and without getting the whole vanity metric side of it, people are like, oh my God. But those reviews are literally a part of your referral network. That's like exactly 100% what they're there for. So people to go, like, for people that they don't know, to say like, this is a cool thing to do or a good thing to do. This isn't lost. Somebody posts pictures of their vacation and all the time, dude. How many times do I have people like, we're coming down, our friends are coming down, what's your company name, XYZ, can you send me a link? It happens all the time, dude. Like, I get texts all the time, DMs all the time from friends and family that are coming to use our service. So like, when you do it and you do it properly, there's also this idea that you don't just have a customer for life, that you have a fan for life if you've done it correctly. And so I think the like 6.33, that's obviously a 3-time return in 5 years or 6 years, however you really want to, base that metric. But it's just putting another person in your list and traffic that you can control and archetypes that you can market to. And I mean, it's not just about the dollars and the cents. It's also about the data and the customer and the customer's information and your way to reach out to that customer. So, I mean, I'm going to take that, 20% investment every time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, usually if I book a resort through like an OTA and I have a great experience and it's a place that I'm coming back to, once every 2 or 3 years, I'm not going to use an OTA unless there's an immense amount of value I'm getting by using the OTA. But typically especially in tour OTAs, I'm seeing that prices are actually higher with tour OTAs lately. There's less parity management like there were before. So I mean, it's really just like OTAs are great for helping you reach new audiences. It's help for acquiring that first customer. Obviously, OTAs have a whole lot of benefits like multi-currency support and all sorts of things. But if they're coming back year after year, they're going to go back. They should be going back to you. If they're not, then you're not doing something right. Maybe there's not value, or maybe it's difficult for them to book. But otherwise, but yeah, I thought that whole section, it was short, it was sweet, it was really to the point. And my
pretty short into the sweet on OTAs and ResTech usually. That's
yeah, I know.
Something I spend a lot of time fucking jerking off
I
about.
know. Yeah. So I mean, I've bookmarked like a lot of little things because I mean I talk to operators all the time with WaveRes, and I'm, you know, it's nice to actually have like something physical that I can send them. Like, hey, like you're just starting out, like you need to join our Facebook group, you need to listen to the pod, you need to, you know, hear inspirational stories so you know that you can do this. So it's like it's good to kind of jam pack a lot of the things you have, because no one's going to read a 400-page book. You know, this is like a perfect, you know, have a drink and read this and it's done. Like it's
I honestly think that like all the podcasts and webinars and fucking like, you know, I honestly there's you know, the next book should be like from millionaire to multimillionaire, which I haven't figured out yet. And the jump from 7 figures to 8 figures and 8 figures to 9 figures, and you know what I mean, even low 9 figures to mid 9 or low 8 figures, like 10 million to 50 million in total top line revenue. It's such a massive fucking jump. And so like that book to me is just like, all right, dude, you got a lawn care company, you got a fucking pizza shop, you have a whatever. And I'm not saying it's like follow all these steps and you're going to get to fucking X amount of dollars in revenue. That's not my point. You know, the point is that it's like there's really not that like much to talk about, right? Like if you want to have a successful business, I think you have to have good marketing, you have to have good sales, you have to have a good grip on your financials, you have to have a good hiring process. And, you know, there's a couple more things, but you know, for the most part, that's really fucking it, dude. Provide quality service, take care of your people, take care of your customers. And like every single business book I've ever fucking read, dude, like this is basically the fundamentals of having a good business. I think the next portion of it, like to go to a next level, to go to that is you got to have a great product fit for the market. You have to not be in an incredibly red ocean or the first to what will become a red ocean. So I think like timing and the product itself are really what starts to separate, you know, in getting into that next echelon, which I haven't entirely figured out, you know.
You forgot to put in the book when you did your backflip on the flyboard, and then you took the flyboard and threw it into the trash and never took it again. I was expecting to see the flyboard story in here.
Yeah, I went to a goddamn not a chiropractor, but like a physical therapist, and we were going down like my medical history, and we were talking about head injuries. I'm like, I've never had a head injury, I've never broken a bone. I was like, well, there was when I was flyboarding and I was hitting my head on the compressed hose, which is like 4 inches in diameter. And it's literally like hitting your head on, you know, a tree stump in the water, like nonstop, dude. And I'm like, fuck, you know, she's like, how many times did you say you did that? I'm like, I don't know, 30, 40. And she's writing it all down. She's like, yeah, that definitely goes into it. I'm like, fuck, you know, yeah. Flyboarding is a cautionary tale on, you know, new products in the marketplace that, you know, but it did. But I think you can do what always works and figure out how to scale it and, you know, separate yourself in the marketplace with those good things. Like, no, you know, that's one part that I sort of didn't leave out there is that, you know, you can go into a red ocean. And I did. I came into pretty red ocean here. But where I was able to separate myself and where I was able to grow where a lot of the operators weren't was that I didn't just look at what they were doing and copy that. You know, I was like, man, there's a lot of bad shit missing in this market. You know, frankly, there's not a ton of advertising going on. A lot of, you know, as I've talked about before. So I came into a red ocean, but I was able to separate myself rather quickly by offering some other things that, you know, people weren't offering, day of play, etc., flyboarding. But I was able to separate myself with good sales, with good marketing, and what I feel like was, you know, pretty great customer service according to most of the reviews when I came in this market. So, you know, you can go into a red ocean and do, you know, pretty well. But again, I think in order to get to that next level, to get to those like big evaluation numbers and have, you know, timing, product fit, and the product, like it's so ballsy, I think, when people do say this hasn't been done before, or there's this brand new thing I'm going to offer to the marketplace. Like, that's scary shit. You know what I mean? Because there's no, you know, there's no roadmap, so to speak, to, you know, introduce that thing. And you have a lot of times that probably most of the time people fail because they're like, it's never been done. And you're like, well, successfully it hasn't been done. And there might be a reason for that. But
yeah, you talk about like starting out, choosing your products, like the day of play situation was kind of interesting. We talk about it on the show it would have been a minute since we talked about that, but you know, just like you just getting in there, you had an idea, you ran with it, and obviously you ended up having to shut it down because of the county wouldn't let you operate anymore. But like you pivoted, and then now you're like, lately you've been thinking of new concepts for Destiny. So it's like, all right, you pivoted, you went back to kind of what worked, and in this area anyways, you built it up. Now it's like you have the flexibility to try, like you have the private pontoon charters you're doing. You brought back skis tours. So there's a lot of new things that you're starting to reintroduce now that you kind of built up a base with the rental side. So, but it's so many people will come in. Like I see it because they contact us for on Trip Shock and Wave Res, and they're like, oh, I got this water sports car that you drive. Like, you have seen those things, like you drive them into the water. They're like sports cars, and they're cool.
They're powered by jet skis.
Yeah, they're cool. And I think like certain people can probably make them work. But as far as like a product fit and appeal, it's a tough business. There's nobody doing it well that I'm aware of. So if you're getting into it, it's kind of like Flyboard was years ago, where you're learning on the go. But it's fine to add those things if you already have a very established business, or you know how to build up, you know, or you already know the roadmap or blueprint to build a water sports car business. But it's always good to bolt on things once you've already established. Then you can try. If you fail, fine, you do something else. You have your core business to fall back on.
Yeah, where I think those kind of are quasi challenging is for the aforementioned reasons you stated. I mean, it's like, you know, what do you do when a thing gets damaged, dude? You know what I mean? It's not like, you know, you're gonna like go fix fiberglass up I don't know, a Lamborghini side or whatever, a Corvette, you know what I mean, and match the paint and do all that sort of stuff. And it can only hold 2 people, and they're expensive. Like they're expensive to, you know, because they're 60 grand. So what are you going to charge for that? Right? Like $200 an hour. So you're going to have a family of 8. And this is why Flyboard was a challenge, because you're in a family of 4 that's like going to go out for an hour. And now you're competing again with the vacation dollar. And while I think it's like a neat curiosity, I just always think of scalability. Like this business is really like, it's filled with a lot of, I don't want to use the word hobbyist to denote like, you know, like you don't know what you're doing, but it's really like a fun sort of hobby business, and people get into it because they're like, man, this is going to be great. But the challenges associated with this business, like far outweigh a lot of other businesses. Now, the one challenge we don't have is usually demand. And that's the challenge that most businesses encounter is demand for their product. So we have jet skis, we have boats, we have jet cars, you know what I mean? Like the demand, I feel like for the most part, as long as you do have correct product fit, is going to be there. And that's always nice. Everything is much easier when you have money. However, being able to scale that demand and scale that product to a wider marketplace is the biggest challenge. So it's like you got a fun business with a fair amount of demand given the market. However, trying to rinse and repeat that and replicate that across different markets is the biggest challenge that water sports faces. And that's why it has never actually been done to scale. I mean, there's some companies that are trying right now. Shout out Kai Capro, you know what I mean? And I think he's got a great business model. But again, it's one of those things that's unproven. So it sort of remains to be seen how good the business model is. And I don't mean that like, you know, tiki's are not evergreen, because they very well might be, but it's just not proven yet. But if he's proving it, he's proving it. So
what for the next edition, what do you think you'll add, or what do you think like is the kind of the next evolution of your book? Like, or like if you're going to write a second, or have you even thought of that?
Yeah.
Like what areas would you like to have like dove in more on, you know, with the book?
Yeah. I don't know if there's going to be a second edition. I did like writing it, but there's some other ideas and, you know, aspects of life that because I really enjoyed, I liked writing the book. Like I said, it was really hard. I had to go into some like kind of deep personal places that I'm not, you know, I made a post on Facebook and I'm just like, man, the book would have been twice as long if I'd have like had to deal with like the challenges of addiction that I've so I'm just like I'm pretty interested in like mental health and men's mental health and you know how it applies. And I don't know, man. I'm definitely going to write something else. I don't know that it's going to be in the water sports niche. Like I feel like in this small like 130 pages, I just sort of feel like, you know what I mean? As I've said countless times, you know what I mean? Like I feel like the book could be summed up in 2 pages. You know what I mean? Like take care of your customers, take care of your employees, make your bottom line the last thing that you're, you know, hyper concerned about, like insofar as it applies to like your personal wealth. Obviously you want to have a healthy bottom line to your business, but I really think like the investments into the intangibles and the things that you'll never get back, at least from a monetary aspect, are the things that really provide the most value. And like, I'm not saying I love money. Like I'm fucking money driven, dude, like 100%. But I also like quantify that or measure that by the success of my customers' happiness, the success of my employees and partners, and my family. And yeah, I think there's a better net benefit in that than there is really like being like, oh, you know what I mean? Like,
well, you know,
buy a sports car or something, you know?
What I was thinking is that we have a podcast, we have an event, we have a Facebook group. Now we have books. We're covering social media. We are covering the whole entire spectrum right now. If you don't like digital or coming to events, now you can buy a book. And it's
well, yeah, you got to come to the event though. The event is everything.
You can get the whole experience depending on what type of personality you are. But hey, how did people buy it?
Sure.
Do you have an ebook? Like, where do we go?
Yeah. So for right now, I mean, I do have a website that's completely unfinished. You know, like I actually got called out by some fucking marketing dickhead who's just like, oh dude, I've been in marketing, man, let me tell you. And he's one of these like mindset coach fucking goddamn, not that there's anything wrong with that, but you know, join my paid Facebook group, and you get a Zoom call and a lot of fucking pump them up. And
I got an email this morning from somebody who is telling me everything I'm doing wrong right now with promoting my book. So yeah.
Did you see that thread? Like, did you see the little comment side thread in my post where the kid was like,
no, I gotta check it out.
Go look it out. But I called
is your personal page or the water sports?
Yeah, because I made a post on Friday, like, oh, I'm supposed to be like marketing this, but here's my shitty marketing strategy. And so he was like trying to come across as like, oh, you know, like, is this strategy working for you? But it really was just sort of like a dig. And in it, oh, son of a gun, where's that even coming from? Let's go ahead and decline that. Sorry. And I just said, look, dude, I've got a real business, real employees, real offices. Like, fucking, I'm not a professional fucking marketer, dude. Like, I don't need to sell the fucking book. You know what I mean? It's like, I did it for me, dude. I could give a fuck if you buy it or not. Yeah, hashtag dirty marketers. Hey, just completely side, and I'll answer the question. I know I ramble, but I like it. So Kelsey Toner from the last episode emailed me, and like, to that, what you mentioned in the book, like, he's like, you know, that shouldn't say book now, it should say check availability. And I'm like, yeah, for the same reason I don't say like, yeah, we do it now, you know what I mean? It's like the same thing. And because he like went over a thing on my site, like it does kind of irritate me when marketers do that, when they do like an audit and they're like, oh man, you know, here's what you're doing wrong. Like, dude, go fuck yourself, man. You know what I mean? Like, I don't. Not to Kelsey. Yeah. He's fine. Like, I did find value in what he sent to me. But yeah. At any rate, yeah, if you just go into Amazon or Barnes and Nobles and you search the book From Mate to Millionaire, it's there. I do have a website called MF and Captain, but it's not. I might change that. I'm not 100% sure. That I might do. I might go through and add some more stuff or do it. You know what I mean? Like, but regardless, you can go to Barnes and Nobles. You can go to Amazon and send the title of the book, or you feel free to DM me or look in our group. And yeah, it's $10. Fucking. You know, shit, I'll give you a copy if you can afford it. Yeah, I'm not trying to make money off the book. I mean, I might do some consultancy down the line. So it is a lead magnet. You give me your information. I might figure out how to sell you something I find valuable later. But at the moment, it's just a book. I'm not gonna be blowing up your emails or nothing like that. As you can see how much marketing I put into this effort, almost zero. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it.
Cool. All right. Well, go out and buy his book. You're going to get 100x the value. I promise.
Hey. Hashtag value.
All right. Well, any last words?
Yeah. No. I'm super uncomfortable.
Yeah, I know. I could tell. There's no F-bombs dropping.
Yeah, it was all so serious, big words I use and everything. I barely swore.
All right, everyone. As always, keep it awkward.